Or listen to the podcast. Just search for Hancock and Kelly.
Former President Donald Trump has been convicted in New York City court of scheming to influence the 2016 presidential election through hush money payments to his alleged porn star paramour, Stormy Daniels. The next day after the convictions, Mr. Trump remained defiant, calling Judge Juan Merchan, who conducted the trial, a devil.
You saw what happened to some of the witnesses that were on our side. They were literally crucified by this man who looks like an angel, but he's really a devil. He looks so nice and soft. People say, oh, he seems like such a nice man. No, unless you saw him in action.
The former president called out numerous issues with his trial: a refusal to grant a change of venue, unfair treatment of witnesses, a gag order on him but no one else, being tried in state court for what would seem to be a federal case, and also the judge laying out a menu of conviction options in his jury instructions with no requirement that jurors actually agree on a specific crime. John, could all of this lead to that conviction being overturned, and could it actually help get Donald Trump elected president again?
Yes, on both counts. I do think this verdict might be overturned at the appellate level. It's a very novel case to try and conflate falsification of business records with the campaign finance law. Essentially, the underlying crime here is that the payment to the porn star should have been reported on the campaign finance form. I mean, think about that. I mean, of all the cases against Donald Trump, this has always been the most, spurious to me. As far as the politics of it, I think you're going to see a bump in the polls short term for Donald Trump. Now, as this thing plays out and wears on, we've got a debate coming up this month later. That can all change. But I think the political fallout of this has been a net benefit to Trump, even despite the legal woes that he faces.
Isn't this all politics? There might be a crime here, but if he wasn't running for president, that trial doesn't happen.
Probably not. Well, that trial may happen. Would they be up for 34 felonies? I don't know. I think it's a question. That's one of the things that will get adjudicated in the greatest criminal justice process. Now, look, Donald Trump's got several more steps in this process to be able to overturn this if he thinks he's had injustice to him. Yet again, he thinks it's all rigged, so why even go through those processes? He will. As it relates to politics, it's been a net positive for him. He's gained a lot of money from those folks out there. I have seen some polling that shows that people who are independent, wonder if they have a pulse, are saying that it's a problem that he's a convicted felon now. There's a lot of football to be played between now and November. The key differences are going to be one candidate's going to be out talking about policy and the other one's going to be talking about personal grievance.
President Biden made his first public comments about the verdicts a couple of hours after Donald Trump's news conference on Friday.
Now he'll be given the opportunity, as he should, to appeal that decision just like everyone else has that opportunity. That's how the American system of justice works. And it's reckless, it's dangerous, it's irresponsible for anyone to say this was rigged just because they don't like the verdict.
The president called our justice system the cornerstone of America, saying it should be respected and that we should never allow anyone to tear it down. Donald Trump claims the Biden administration orchestrated the case against him in New York. Michael, President Biden spent about 90 seconds on this, then went straight to Israel-Hamas war issue that he held a news conference for initially. Is this how he should be handling it?
Totally. Totally. Look, he's acknowledged that he's the president of the United States. He needs to stay above it. And the reality is, particularly in New York, he has no influence on what's happening there. That's a made-up assertion by Donald Trump. He needs to be focused on the issues that matter to American people while Donald Trump's out on his grievance tour. Listen to Donald Trump. He never talks about policy. He never talks about what he's going to do. He just talks about being a victim.
How do you think Joe Biden's playing this so far?
He's kind of in a box here, and take a little umbrage with saying Trump never talks about issues. He started off that, whatever that thing was on Friday, talking about the border crisis. And it's issues like the border crisis, like inflation, that may be the downfall of Joe Biden in November. But I think that Biden, they're going to try and make this campaign about Donald Trump. And they may succeed in doing that. And the reality is you've got Donald Trump, very unpopular in the country. Joe Biden, very unpopular in the country. We're going to elect somebody president that's very unpopular.
Should Donald Trump do jail time, get probation, be on home confinement? What do you think about his punishment for these convictions?
Well, it's sad for the country, and
what should happen?
Well, not jail time.
Oh, he's
Michael?
not going to do any jail time.
You don't think so? All right. Still to come on Hancock and Kelly, why President Biden may be more focused on courting black voters than bashing Donald Trump. And our quote of the week, an apology from the Pope for an anti-gay slur that he made while speaking Italian.